So I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine you've been alive for, I don't know, but 200,000 years.
Right, just a casual couple of millennia.
Yeah, exactly. And you are walking around right now, today, holding on to these really fragmented, just agonizing memories of a literal cosmic flood.
Which sounds exhausting, honestly.
Oh, it is. You've watched the dawn of civilization happen. You've seen empires rise and fall entirely. But currently, you spend your days managing this inner city youth center in upstate New York.
It's quite the career shift.
Right. And on top of all of that, you are constantly suffering from these apocalyptic, literally world-ending migraines.
Which, I mean, makes sense given the cosmic baggage you're dragging around.
Completely. So this wild scenario is actually pulled straight from an excerpt of this really fascinating novel called The Tale of the Two by C. Charis Coyle. And we're doing a deep dive into it today because it's this incredible text that weaves, ancient angelic lore and these really complex creation myths directly into the gritty pavement of modern-day urban reality.
And it uses that extreme contrast to force us as the reader to kind of reevaluate how we understand our own existence, right? Like how we process trauma and really the nature of consciousness itself.
Exactly, yeah. So our mission for this deep dive is to basically unpack this really rich mythological tapestry. We are going to extract the most profound insights from it.
Right, because there's a lot to unpack there.
There really is. We're going to explore the true nature of duality, the massive burden of immortality, and this is the best part, I think, how you can actually find divine sparks hidden inside the absolute darkest parts of the human experience.
Which is such a powerful concept.
It is. We want to distill these massive, mind-bending cosmic concepts into some really practical aha moments that you, our listener, can actually apply to your own life. So let's just get into it. We're looking at our protagonist, Pene. He's living in upstate New York, like we said, running this sanctuary for at-risk youth called Mystecha.
Which is a great name.
Yeah. But Pene is actually a pseudonym. His true ancient name is Penemuel, which it actually translates to the inside of God.
Right, because he is an ancient watcher. In the lore of the text, they're known as the Grigori. And to really understand his current suffering, we have to look back at the mechanics of his origin story.
You have to go way back.
Way back. So, long ago, this collective of non-human intelligences, these watchers, was sent to Earth. And their directive was very strict. It was supposed to be just observation and, very gentle mentorship of early humanity.
No interfering.
Exactly. No heavy-handed interfering. But the execution of that grand cosmic plan catastrophically fractured.
Because a lot of these celestial beings, they rebelled.
Right. They went totally off script.
Yeah, and the nature of their rebellion in Coyle's text is what really caught my attention. It wasn't just like they decided to be evil for the fun of it.
Yeah, not at all.
They actually wanted to artificially accelerate human evolution. They thought they were helping, in a way, but they intervened way too directly.
Which triggered a massive chain reaction.
Yeah, it led to the creation of the Nephilim, and it eventually culminated in those devastating floods of ancient Mesopotamia. They basically broke the system by trying to rush it.
It was this completely unauthorized evolutionary shortcut, and it just plunged early humanity into total chaos. But Tene is the anomaly here.
Right.
He actually stayed loyal to the original divine blueprint. He didn't participate in any of the genetic or structural tampering at all. His specific assigned task was simply to teach humanity the arts of reading and writing.
I really want to pause on that for a second because it completely subverts traditional mythology.
Oh, absolutely it does.
In most Western lore, the fallen angels are these architects of pure malice, right? They're the bad guys. But Pene is condemned by the universe just for giving humans the written word. He just saw writing as this sacred offering, like a tool to expand our consciousness.
Yeah, but the Celestial Council viewed it as a highly dangerous evolutionary accelerator.
Really? Just writing?
Think about the actual mechanism of writing. What does it do? It exteriorizes memory.
Okay.
It fundamentally shifts human consciousness from this cyclical, present-focused oral tradition into a linear understanding of historical time. So once you have a recorded past and a projected future, you suddenly introduce existential anxiety.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, you introduce the awareness of mortality on a mass scale. And the Celestial Administration basically ruled that humanity just did not have the neurological or the the spiritual maturity to handle that kind of psychological software update yet.
Okay, let's unpack this. So Penai is essentially the guy who gave humanity the internet of the ancient world.
Basically, yes.
He thought it would connect everyone and be this great tool, but the cosmic administration saw it as handing a loaded weapon to a toddler.
That is the perfect analogy.
It's like being the only responsible teacher who stays behind during a massive school riot to protect the students, and the administration fires you anyway.
Exactly. And they didn't just fire him. When the celestial portals to Earth were finally quarantined to contain the broader Grigori rebellion, Penai was locked out.
Just totally stuck here.
Stuck. He was judged guilty by association. They stripped him of his ability to shapeshift, trapped him in a really dense physical human body, and severed his internal connection to the divine.
Which is just wild. I mean, how does he not just explode with fury at the universe?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the text frames that psychological weight. He becomes this ultimate innocent scapegoat, right? He's carrying the burden of a Promethean tragedy. And it's not just an abstract poetic curse.
No, it's visceral.
Right. Like, we understand modern complex PTSD today, how chronic trauma fundamentally rewires a human nervous system over maybe a few decades of a human life.
Yeah, it causes real physical changes.
So now scale that up. Penei is dragging around a 200,000-year-old nervous system, and it is completely overloaded with the guilt of a planetary apocalypse that he didn't even cause.
Oh, man.
His entire existence is just this eternity of fractured memories, night terrors, and real physical agony because his mortal brain simply cannot process his immortal trauma.
Right, which brings up a huge glaring question for me. If Penei is entirely innocent, if his intentions were purely good and he was literally just doing his job, why is the universe's justice system so seemingly flawed?
That's the core tension, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if the system allows an innocent being to suffer for millennia, it forces us to look at the actual architecture of how this specific universe operates.
And the text doesn't shy away from that. It points us directly to a creation myth explained by another ancient angel. His name is Ariel.
The fiery golden line of God.
That's the one. He's one of the beings who actually retained his celestial status. And Ariel explains this whole cosmological theory to his human friend, Tamaltima. It's a framework that relies heavily on concepts mirrored in Lurianic Kabbalah.
Okay.
So Ariel describes the state of everything before existence as the dazzling darkness, or Hashem.
You mean the infinite, right, the formless Godhead.
Exactly, but here's the catch. For a finite universe to exist at all, the infinite has to make room.
It can't take up all the space.
Right. So the divine had to perform this cosmic contraction, a withdrawal of itself to create an empty womb. Basically, a void where creation could actually occur.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
But when the concentrated divine light was subsequently beamed into this new finite space, the early structures of creation simply couldn't withstand the sheer intensity of it.
It was too much power for a fragile new system.
Way too much. And this resulted in a catastrophic cosmological event known as the Shattering of the Vessels.
So the universe literally breaks at the exact moment of its birth.
Yes. And this shattering sent all these divine sparks plummeting down into the void, where they became trapped in dense, dark matter.
Wow.
Now, Ariel makes a vital philosophical distinction here regarding how we interpret that brokenness. He strictly separates the concept of polarity from conflicting duality.
Okay, wait, what's the difference? Because people use those words interchangeably all the time.
They do, but they are very different. Since you, our listener, are probably familiar with basic dualistic frameworks, let's bypass the standard yin-yang examples and look at the actual mechanism.
Let's do it.
Polarity is the structural tension holding the physical universe together. It is the necessary, harmonious opposition that allows matter and energy to interact, like a magnet.
Right. You need a positive and negative charge for anything to work.
Exactly. Whereas conflicting duality
Is a cognitive distortion.
precisely, it is the illusion of total separation. It's this toxic belief that the creator and the creation, or the mind and the body, are entirely divorced from one another.
They're enemies, basically.
Right, which brings us to the core mechanism of Tikkun Olam, which means the repair of the world.
Yeah.
In this specific cosmological framework, quote-unquote evil does not exist as an opposing sovereign cosmic force.
Wait, really? No ultimate bad guy force?
Nope. Evil is merely a klipoth, which is a dense, hardened husk that forms around those shattered, trapped divine sparks we talked about. It's just a shell of trauma or density waiting to be liberated.
Okay, I really have to push back on this theology for a second.
Go for it.
So what does this all mean for bad actors? If malevolence is just a husk, hiding a divine spark. Isn't that dangerously minimizing actual harm?
How so?
It sounds a bit like arguing that a highly toxic chemical spill in a river is just a poorly packaged battery waiting to be recycled. Like, sure, theoretically maybe, but you still have to deal with the toxic waste that is actively destroying the ecosystem, right? It feels like letting malevolence off the hook.
That is a very fair point. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the text argues that the method of dealing with that toxic waste is what really matters.
Okay.
If you engage the husk through the lens of conflicting duality, meaning if you label a person or a situation as purely irredeemably evil and you simply attack it with equal hostility, you actually reinforce the husk.
Because you're playing its game.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
give it more density and power because you are feeding that illusion of separation. The actual mechanism of Tikkun Olam requires piercing that husk with aware, compassionate consciousness.
Okay, so you don't ignore the danger of the husk.
Yeah.
You refuse to forget the divine spark trapped inside it.
Exactly. And Ariel points out that early humanity just couldn't handle that terrifying paradox of the dazzling darkness. Humans desperately needed a scapegoat to explain the chaotic, violent husks of the world.
So they blamed the angels.
Right. They fractured the angelic realm into holy and fallen, effectively miscasting beings like Penai to carry the blame for the dark parts of existence.
Man. So if Penai is trapped in this human body, carrying the immortal guilt of a shattered universe, how does he actually, pay rent? How does he exist in the modern world without completely losing his mind?
Well, he grounds himself in the earthly crucible.
Right. And that crucible is Brannock, New York, where he runs Mystecha, also known as the Hearth.
Yes.
It's this sanctuary for at-risk inner-city youth. And the juxtaposition of his reality is just so striking.
It really is.
You've got this building covered in a sprawling mural of mythical beasts intertwined with real, living ivy. And inside, you have these teenagers, like Saul and Thomas, and they're actively teasing Penay about the romantic lyrics he's writing for them.
For their Sumerian rock opera about the goddess Inanna.
Yeah, which is just such a wildly specific and funny detail.
But it's also a brilliant adaptation of his original cosmic function. Think about it. He was sent to Earth to mentor early humanity and teach them the arts.
Oh, wow. I didn't even put that together.
Yeah. 200,000 years later, he is still running that exact same mentorship program. He's just executing it in a much grittier, hyper-localized context.
That is amazing. But the physical toll is really catching up to him, right? Those apocalyptic migraines are escalating. They're being driven by all that trapped cosmic trauma.
Yes, and this is where Cassie enters the narrative.
Right, Cassie.
Her actual ancient name is Cassiel, and she is a therapeutic touch healer. See, Ariel is forbidden by celestial law from directly healing Carrion himself.
Red tape, even in heaven.
Right. So he uses Cassie as this sort of human loophole to try and ease Penny's suffering secretly. And Cassie possesses this really profound, innate sensitivity.
Yeah.
When she first attempts to heal Penny, her physical touch actually works. It initiates a real change and temporarily soothes the eons-old migraine.
But then the psychological approach she uses immediately backfires on her.
Terribly.
Because here's where it gets really interesting. She tries to guide him through a standard visualization technique.
Right.
Like you would in therapy. She asks him to relax, to sink into a happy memory, to remember better times.
Which sounds nice in theory.
Right. But Penny just violently snaps. He actually throws her out of his sanctuary. And if you look at it from a psychological standpoint, it makes complete sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Standard meditation asks a person to connect to their peaceful core. But Penny's core is the literal memory of a cosmic apocalypse.
Yeah, his trauma doesn't have a bottom.
Exactly. Trying to soothe Penny's headache with a guided meditation is like putting a Band-Aid on a 200,000-year-old bullet wound. You can't just tell a guy who watched the Mesopotamian flood wipe out early humanity to think happy thoughts. Asking him to look inward isn't offering a sanctuary. It's tossing him directly back into the floodwaters while he's actively drowning.
That's a great way to put it. And Cassie quickly realizes that a conventional therapeutic approach is completely insufficient here.
She has to pivot.
She does. And the text heavily emphasizes the alchemical symbolism of Cassie's real name, Cassiel. She actually explains to Penny that she was named after the tarot angel of temperance.
Okay, what does that signify in this context?
Well, the imagery of that specific tarot card is crucial. It shows an angel standing with one foot in the water and one foot on the earth, pouring liquid continuously between two cups.
Ah,
It represents the active, continuous integration of the conscious and the unconscious, the mortal and the immortal, the bridging of worlds.
and that represents the exact alchemical bridge that Penny is missing.
Precise.
Because he is completely polarized right now. He's this massive celestial mind trapped in dense physical matter, and he is totally unable to integrate the two.
Right, and Cassie becomes the external representation of that bridge for him. When she returns to Mystecha after being thrown out, she doesn't try to coddle his cosmic pain anymore.
She gets real with him.
She does. She confronts the gritty reality of his environment head on. There's this scene where she stares down Tomas, who is this aggressive teen trying to intimidate her, and she completely matches the energy of the room.
She doesn't back down at all.
Not even a little. She proves that she can stand with one foot in the spiritual realm of healing and the other foot firmly planted on the concrete floor of the youth center. And that integration, that groundedness, is what finally earns Penay's profound respect.
But, building a theoretical alchemical bridge in a quiet room is one thing. That fragile peace they establish is violently tested when the harsh reality of the inner city literally kicks their front door in.
Yes. The climax of the excerpt shifts the stakes from the purely metaphysical to the extremely visceral.
It happens so fast. The kids are having this joyful rehearsal for their Sumerian rock opera. The energy is high. The community is functioning beautifully. And then gunshots erupt right outside the building.
Yeah.
A teenager named Marcus falls through the threshold, and he is bleeding out onto the floor from a drive-by shooting. The sanctuary just descends into sheer panic.
Complete chaos.
And I keep getting stuck on Penay's reaction in this scene. You have this ancient Grigori, a being who once possessed the divine capacity to literally shape reality, and in this moment, he is utterly impotent.
He can't do anything.
Nothing. He is reduced to just screaming for clean towels and an ambulance. The absolute helplessness he must feel. It must be maddening.
It is, because it forces this brutal psychological mirroring. Penay is staring at a dying child bleeding out on his floor, and it perfectly reflects his ancient inability to save innocent humans from the catastrophic floodwaters in Mesopotamia.
It's the same trauma playing out again.
Exactly. He is trapped in this loop of ultimate failure. He's a celestial being forced to experience the absolute peak of human vulnerability and limitation.
But then Cassie pushes her way through the crowd. She kneels beside Marcus, and she doesn't just apply standard medical first aid.
No, she weaponizes her alchemical bridge.
I love that phrasing.
It's what she does. Cassie pours every ounce of her personal life force, her innate healing capacity, directly into Marcus. She is physically acting as the tether holding his spiritual essence to his physical body.
Just sheer willpower.
Yes. And she sustains that bridge through the entire chaotic ambulance ride and the frantic rush into the emergency room. She even leverages her past medical connections, specifically Dr. Brenda Davis, to get Marcus straight into surgery.
Right.
It is a pure, uninterrupted flow of concentrated human will keeping a life anchored to the physical plane. And the second Marcus is finally stabilized by the surgeons, the bridge collapses.
Cassie just completely drains her energetic reserves and falls unconscious right into Penny's arms.
She gave everything she had.
Which is incredible. And honestly, does this moment actually prove Ariel's cosmic theory about humans being like gods in hiding?
It certainly points to it.
The irony is just staggering to me. The literal ancient angel is entirely powerless to stop the bleeding, while the seemingly fragile human woman steps into the void with this miraculous divine-like intervention.
And this raises an important question regarding Penay's ultimate redemption. Think about it. For thousands of years, Penay has harbored this simmering, quiet fury at the creator.
Because he felt abandoned.
Right. He was convinced that the divine just allowed the innocent to drown back then and allows systemic violence to rule the earthly plane now. He really believed he was the only entity left who actually cared about humanity.
Yet here he is, watching a human do the saving.
Exactly. This is the literal execution of Tikkun Olam in action. The drive-by shooting, the systemic violence of the city, these represent the dense, hardened, violent husks of the modern world.
Right, going back to what we talked about earlier.
Yes. And when Cassie intervenes, she doesn't fight the chaos with more aggression. She pierces the violent husk of that moment with an overwhelming surge of selfless, compassionate attention. She repairs the localized fracture in the world right in front of her.
Wow.
Watching Cassie burn her own life force to save a child forces Penny to realize something massive. The Creator did not abandon the world. The divine spark isn't coming from the sky to save them in some grand rescue mission.
It's operating internally.
Yes, it is emerging upward through the very humans he has spent millennia trying to protect.
It changes the entire trajectory of how we view intervention. The divine isn't top-down, it's a bottom-up emergence.
Exactly.
And that brings the philosophy of this text directly into your daily reality as a listener. I mean, we started this deep dive at the absolute edge of cosmology, right? The formless, dazzling darkness, the traumatic shattering of the celestial vessels.
As far back as you can go.
Right, but we end up on the blood-stained linoleum of an upstate New York youth center. And the connective tissue between those two massive extremes is that the agonizing, beautiful work of gathering the scattered sparks of the universe is exactly the same, regardless of the scale.
Absolutely. Whether you are an immortal watcher carrying the weight of ancient history, or a person simply trying to navigate a fractured modern community, the directive remains identical.
Yeah.
Think about the husks you encounter in your own environment, the toxic workplaces, the apathetic systems, the aggressive encounters on the street. Do you engage them through conflicting duality?
By fighting back with anger.
Right. Do you match density with density, fighting the husk and inadvertently feeding it? Or do you possess the temperance to see through that outer shell and apply the focused, compassionate awareness necessary to liberate the spark trapped underneath?
It requires a massive paradigm shift in how we process adversity and trauma. It really does. And to end this deep dive, I want to leave you with a completely new concept to mull over, something that reframes everything we've just unpacked.
Let's hear it.
We discussed the mythic shattering of the vessels as a cosmological event, right?
Yeah.
Something that happened before the physical universe even formed.
Right.
But what if we read that myth differently? What if the shattering of the vessels isn't a cosmological event of the ancient past, but a metaphor for the psychological fracturing of the human mind, the exact moment we first achieved self-awareness?
Oh, wow. The precise moment primitive consciousness fractured into self and other.
Exactly, the birth of the human ego. Because the birth of individual consciousness inherently requires a shattering of absolute unity. You cannot know yourself as a distinct, separate individual without breaking away from the whole.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. And if that is the true shattering, then Tikkun Olam, repairing the world, isn't about trying to regress backwards into some pristine, pre-universe state of ignorant bliss. We aren't trying to unbreak the vessels.
No, we're trying to evolve forward into a completely unprecedented form of integrated consciousness.
Yes. A consciousness where our individual fractures, our deep-seated traumas, and all the scars we carry, much like Penai's ancient, unhealed wounds, they don't represent our ultimate failure. Instead, they become the specific, unique architecture through which our localized divine spark finally learns how to express itself.